Shavua Tov, everyone. Have a really, really good week. Welcome to video number 3 in the TillesTells WhatsApp group series. This week we had the wonderful holiday of Lag BaOmer. Last week I told some stories for that. Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, in Kabbalah, in terms of the divine attributes, is operative on that day, is Hod Shebahod, essence of Hod, the 5th day of the 5th week. That means that next week, this coming week, on Tuesday night, Wednesday, we count the 41st day of the Omer, and that then in the corresponding divine attributes are Yesod, Shebi Yesod, essence of Yesod. What is Yesod? Yesod translates as foundation. And the wisest man that ever lived, King Solomon, in the book of Proverbs, said, Tzaddik Yesod Olam, that the purely righteous person is the foundation of the world. And the world can't exist unless there are tzaddikim in it. How many? 1, 3, 36 is a matter of discussion, but the principle applies. In Jerusalem, in 1945, passed away a man that embodied this idea of Yesod Shebi Yesod, and he passed away on the day of Yesod Shebi Yesod, the day of the purely righteous. His name was Rabbi Shlomo Goldman, and in Europe he had been the Rebbe in a town called Zevhil. And although to tell the truth, even there in Europe, he wasn't always known for his great righteousness and purity, because he kept very much to himself. He kept himself hidden. But what happened? One day, he in order to avert a likely pogrom in their area, he performed a resurrection, a temporary resurrection. And there were witnesses. The word spread, and soon he found himself with hundreds and then thousands of followers and admirers. And the numbers grew when it became clear that his blessings nearly always were fulfilled. He was uncomfortable in this role. He didn't mind when people came to him with questions in Jewish law. He was a great Torah scholar and authority in Jewish law, but being a Rebbe made him uncomfortable. Perhaps this was a motivating factor in his decision to make Aliyah, to move he and his family to the Holy Land. And in Jerusalem, he worked extra hard to keep himself hidden. He didn't identify himself to people other than to say that his name was Shlomo, and he didn't really go anywhere other than go from house to study hall, Beis Medrash, and from Beis Medrash study hall back to home. But what happened? One day he encountered on the street, either going to or from the Beis Medrash, a man from Zevhil, his town, and the man recognized him right away and spread the word that the great tzaddik, the holy man, the pure righteous Rabbi, Rabbi Shlomo, as he was affectionately known, is now living in Jerusalem. So again, he acquired hundreds and then thousands of followers, and again the number grew when it became clear his blessings nearly always came to fruition. Plus, he was very beloved because he was a very kind, gentle person, and he worked very hard at rescuing young Israeli Jews from missionaries, and he also worked hard at teaching the Israeli Jews, Israeli couples across the religious spectrum about the importance of the laws of family purity. And he continued to answer questions in Jewish law. But as an example of his blessings and coming true in a way that has an effect even down to today, consider this story. I call it the Washerwoman'S Tale, and I found it in a book called Stories My Grandfather Told Me. There was a woman, Miriam, who worked in the Zevhil family home in Jerusalem. She was a laundress. She washed the clothes of the Zevhil family, the days before washing machines and laundromats, and she herself was childless, had been childless for many years. And one day she gathered up her courage and she stood in the entrance to the great rabbi's study, and said, Rebbe, please help me, please bless me, I should have children. Rabbi Shlomo looked up and stared at her for a few moments, and he said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Then he looked at her a few more minutes and he said, but this I can promise you, that in your merit, other childless women will be remembered and have salvation, meaning that they would have children. As I said, he passed away in 1945. 19 years later, in 1964, on the 24th of the Jewish month of Shvat, Miriam Bas Maimon, the washerwoman, passed away. The 24th of Shvat, by the way, is a big date in Chabad. It's the yortzeit of the first Chabad Rebbe. And it's a big day in Tzfat, the anniversary of the great earthquake in the 1850s, and the great miracle performed during that earthquake to save lots of lives by the Avritcher Rebbe, the Bat Ayin. In any case, she passed away in 1964. And 29 years after that, in 1993, 48 years after Reb Shlomo passed away, a woman who had been a neighbor of Miriam when Miriam was alive in Jerusalem saw Miriam in a dream. And Miriam said to her that more than 50 years ago, I was promised by the great tzaddik, Rabbi Shlomo Goldman, Rabbi Shlomo, that in my merit, childless women would be remembered and saved. That is, that they would be saved from being barren, they would bear children. So I'm asking you to spread the word that childless women should come to my grave and pray, and pray for the elevation of my soul. And in return, I promise that they will indeed be remembered and have children. Well, the former neighbor was very excited by her dream and was quick to spread the word. And as you might imagine, lots and lots of childless women, of the childless women in Jerusalem and from further away in Israel, went to Miriam's grave in Har Menuchot, a very large cemetery in the Givat Shaul area of Jerusalem, and prayed there for the elevation of a soul, and prayed that they should be remembered for children, and a very high percentage of them indeed were remembered for children.